Alright, we've got something new today, as opposed to painting or in-game pics. What I'm going to be reviewing is some 3D printed pieces that I've done from the Atomic Shelter Kickstarter from M3 Studios that I backed. This is actually their second Kickstarter. They just finished up their third, and it works really good, obviously, with Fallout, since the Atomic Shelter is basically a vault. So the way the M3 Studios has this designed, everything prints flat. I'll include a clip showing what this piece actually printing. So here you can see printing one of the sections of the vault, completely supportless. There's a bit of stringing going on, but that's more about me tuning my machine than anything. The connection piece for the window that will eventually be there is part of the file, so you don't need any supports for the windows because they come in two parts. It'll just slot together. But yeah, so you can see it progressing along quite nicely to go along with all my other ones. So you can see it prints flat to the board, so this is basically how it was running. In order to make sure it doesn't need any supports, the window frame is printed in these two pieces and then just slots together. So that's one of the big draws I had to this Kickstarter, was the fact that it was all supportless. You can see it goes in a bit tight. You can sand it down a bit to make it a bit easier. But since this is a permanent connection, unlike if it was a doorway, I don't mind it being a bit tight. And you can always use a little bit of percussive maintenance to get it to go in correctly. And then your window is permanently fixed. Now, this is just one section of a room, that's why it's flat on both sides. This will generally be the outside of the rooms. And this double window piece, here's some more that I've printed, you can link with another window and basically have your view into the next door type thing. These are all, these two are the same piece. You can see they fit really good. I've got good leveling, so I've got some decent adhesion and flatness on my particular printer. I use a CR10 Max. The larger build size means not only can I do terrain pieces like this, I can also scale up and do cosplay, so printing helmets for certain Wars in the Stars stuff. Always makes it good. Now, the system that he uses for these, everything's pre-done with magnet holes, but also these linkage pieces, you can see, have a little T-junction that snaps in. So you don't really need the magnets on most of the pieces. They'll just snap together like that, and then you snap the next one together. And it links pretty well. You just need to make sure that like the bottom sits flush. A little hard to do because this is a fairly janky painting surface. Then for the end pieces, he's got these doorways. Once again, you've got magnets, but this one also has the T-junctions. This piece printed separately and actually will come right out, you can see, because I filed it a bit in case I was having problems with getting the door out. And the door, I basically just had to sand a bit internally, and that's more about the printer you're using. If you have a large enough resin printer, you could print these in resin and probably not have as many tight spots, but with FDM, the tolerances aren't quite there. So you can see the door is pretty nicely stylized. It has an almost Vault-Tec logo, since this is not actually Fallout. You can't use the actual things. And it locks in and pulls up. So these are really good for, you know, games of Wasteland Warfare, or the RPG is what I plan to use this for eventually. But so then we have this section blocked off like that, and then you can abut it with other pieces. In addition, he doesn't just do these blocky bits, he actually does all the furniture and stuff as well. So This is from Modifius, the official Fallout people. I won't be tagging them in this video since this is a non-official thing. But as you can see, fits in pretty well. These are actually designed to allow 2 standard figures on either side. So they look big, but once you start having figures in them, it really is nice to have the extra size. And so this is the desk that he printed. It prints flat like this, and so needs no supports. This one was done on my resin printer. I had access to a Mars for a while and did a lot of resin printing, decided I really liked it. And so my next thing will be getting a hold of an Epax X10 once they release the 5K version of that, so I can have a larger build plate for doing resin pieces. So I find that FDM for these larger wall pieces is fine, but when I want to go down and do smaller detail stuff, figures, all these tiny terrain pieces, I much prefer having a resin printer. But you can see it's about the same size, a little thinner, a little longer than the Modifius one. I think it looks perfectly fine. In fact, I almost think it's better because the base fits nicely there, whereas this one doesn't. I'll take that one out. In addition, for instance, since this is a vault, we have the radiation screeners / curers, whatever you want to pretend they are. This printed in 2 pieces, so this top piece is separate and printed flat on there, whereas this printed flat here, and then you just glue them together like this, and then they just sit. This particular hallway is part of security room, so there'll be other wall sections here with the security guards looking in, and you'll have our little detectors set up in that section before they go into the vault proper through the sealed door as I knock stuff over. But yes, I found that the detail and quality from this Kickstarter was well worth what I put into it, which I think it was $75 Canadian, so currently that's around 56 or so US. And for everything I got out of that Kickstarter, it was well worth it. His newest one is Oasis in the Wasteland or something like that. I'll have all of this linked in the video notes. There was a lot of really good stuff. He's also really great about taking feedback. I found problems with 1 or 2 pieces when I printed them. He fixed them that same day. You know, very responsive. Takes suggestions as well. He came up with a rock-faced wall section so that you could make a room that basically ends in rock. And he was asking us how we liked it, and we mentioned, hey, you know, that looks great for like food or something like that. You know, you could have, you know, crops or whatnot set up in the dirt sections. And within a day or 2, he had made rendered up mushrooms and little planter stuff to throw in there. So, you know, he's a great guy, really responsive. I'll have a link to the Facebook group. While the Kickstarters are closed, he does still accept pledges for it, basically, but you can buy in, and he, you know, is very responsive to stuff like that. Oasis in the Sea or in the desert, or whatever it's called, just finished, and that, based on what I went through with this one, you know, he doesn't have all the stretch goals finished, so it'll probably take a month or 2 before everything's done. But he does a pretty good job of testing, and like I said, the fact that everything's designed to be printed flat, he does some amazing stuff. So this little digger is from the Kickstarter as well, and all of this was printed flat and then pieced together. So these 2 pieces, this is all multi-part, you know, everything just kind of snapped together. Even there's little rivets. That's what these are, were little post rivets that you inserted to cover up the holes from it going together. So it's just a brilliant little bit of kit. And you can see mocks up quite well next to the Wasteland Warfare figures, which is what I look for. And yeah, so Like I said, really good. Give it a look if you like it. Hit them up on the Facebook page, or just join the Facebook page and see what everyone's printing.